I'm going to be recording today. Normally, I would record on my A days, so you guys probably don't see me recording much. Usually, I record on my A days, but because of the way the schedule's kind of wonky this week, you'll see me recording today. So it's just me and my voice. It's not you guys. Okay, let's go over the board real quickly. So today we took our benchmark. We're going to continue on and try to wrap up Module 12 today. Next class, we're just going to keep right on going. We're going to cover 12 and 13 in the book. However, on Friday, since I see you guys on Friday, we're going to do this cool thing called parapsychology. I have some activities that we're going to try since it's almost Halloween. So we're going to try our ability at being clairvoyant and trying to, we're actually going to use something called Zener cards. Has anybody ever heard of Zener cards? No? Well, good. So it'll be something new for us. So Friday, we're going to try that out. That should be kind of a fun activity that we're going to do in class. Okay, so any questions before we get started? Okay, CNS. Remember, our nervous system is divided into two main parts. The nervous system is every single nerve, neuron, whatever in our body. It's divided into two main parts. The central nervous system, or the don't say it 5 times too fast nervous system, which is the PNS, the peripheral nervous system. Okay, anybody have any questions on this one? Okay, so here is the first division of our brain, or of our nervous system. Central nervous system is our brain stem, which is the upper part of our spine, and then we have our spinal cord. So basically, our central nervous system goes from the top of our head down to right here, our butt, just above our butt where our spinal cord ends. Okay, but our spine actually looks like a tree trunk, and out of that trunk comes our peripheral nervous system. So all of these nerves coming out of our spine, up here, down in our legs, these are all considered to be part of the peripheral nervous system. Question? Yes, gotta write you a pass. That's okay. I got a pair of scissors. We'll just chop it off. No? Okay. All right. So again, peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system handles the communication between our senses and our central nervous system. And it also handles the motor response coming back. Okay, so what's today? The 25th. Time. Come here. Come right back, please. Okay, so we're going to conduct a very scientific experiment right now. You guys ready? Okay, good. I like the enthusiasm. All right, what I want everybody to do, wave at me. Caden, seriously, that hurts. That's all you want. You're just like this, just a little bit. You're not gonna wave? No. All right. Where's my guinea pig at? What are we doing? Catching. Yeah, we're catching. Yeah. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? You're all right. Look at that money. Look at this. See, it's easy, right? Whoa! Look out! You almost got a lot older right there. Anybody? 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 Kenny? Yeah. Good job. All right. Victoria, ready? Okay, so we're catching a ball, right? Okay. Good job again, you. Money. You ready? Too easy. All right, so what's going on here? We're just tossing this ball back and forth. What's happening is this. When the ball comes at you, all right, we're seeing the ball coming at us. We'll get into vision and how all that works later. When the ball's coming at you, Your brain's picking up on the sensations that it's giving off. This is a bright yellow ball, right? So it's throwing off yellow light energy. So when the ball comes, what's that? You sure about that? Who says this is green? Seriously? Get out of here. All right, let's say yellow green or green yellow. All right, it's not green. All right, so yellow or green, whatever. The point is, this is giving off light energy. That light energy is coming into our eyes. Our eyes then send that impulse back to our spine. Our spine then interprets it. The brain processes the data. It says, oh, this is a tennis ball. All right, if I throw this at somebody and hit you with this, or I throw this rock, which one would hurt worse if you missed? This? Probably the rock, right? Our brain can tell the difference between these two. The brain processes what's what, tennis ball or the rock. Okay, you catch the rock with your face, it's going to hurt more than the tennis ball. So what happens is this. Your brain gets that sensory impulse from your peripheral nervous system. Your eyes send it to the spine. The spine says, hey, I got to send this to the brain and figure everything out. Brain figures it out. Then it sends a motor response, which is how Rachel can catch. Just like that. Like Marissa can catch. Just kidding. I got you good on that one, though. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? The peripheral nervous system is responsible for pulling in sensory information, sending it to our brain. And then the brain sends the message back through the peripheral system for a motor response. So it's just like catching the ball or waving at me when I say wave at me. Okay? Question? Or are you just waving again? All right. All right, next subdivision. Your peripheral nervous system is going to be divided 2 more times. All right, autonomic. Please write that down, it's important. Autonomic nervous system. It is a subdivision of the peripheral nervous system. The word autonomic looks like a very common word that we see almost every day. What's that other word that it looks almost identical to? Automatic. Please remember, autonomic basically means automatic. Question? Sophia, you good? So autonomic basically means automatic. How many of you had breakfast this morning? Good for you. Breakfast is the most important meal. How many of you have had something to drink today? Coffee, water, juice, whatever. Okay, your body is processing the food. It's processing the water. How many of you are actively thinking about your digestion as it moves through your lower intestine? Nobody, except for Roxy. All right, no, nobody is thinking about that because it happens automatically. The autonomic nervous system is what makes everything happen behind the scenes that we don't know about. Blood pressure, blood sugar, digestion, sweating, okay? Being awake, alertness, arousal, all of those things happen automatically, and they're handled by the autonomic nervous system. So if this is the automatic part, what do you think this next one's going to be? Not quite fully automatic. So the somatic nervous system deals with our skeletal movements, just like waving, catching a baseball, dodging a rock. All right? Marissa's got it down. All right? The somatic nervous system also handles sensation. Okay, but an easy way to remember this is the autonomic is automatic, the somatic is skeletal. If you can remember, somatic is skeletal, like skeletal movement, meaning muscles and bones. Does anybody have any questions on that? Some of this stuff's kind of probably new to a lot of you. Have you guys ever done this? Ever heard of any of these subdivisions? A couple of you. So a lot of this is new. If you guys have questions, please make sure you're raising your hand, okay? All right. The autonomic system is subdivided. One more time. But before we get into that, how many of you have almost been in an accident or maybe almost been in a fight or been in a fight? Yeah, or not necessarily where you were driving the car, but just in the car where you actually saw something almost happen, or maybe it actually happened. Actually happened, okay? Did we do this already? Roxy, physically, what did your body experience? Well, what's shock? Okay, it happens quickly. What else? What are some other experiences we had physically? Okay, your muscles can tense up. Jamie? Okay, that was the end result, but like physically, what did you feel right in that moment? Nothing? Did you feel pain? A little bit? Good. Do you know what that was? It's your body releasing adrenaline. Good. And actually, your liver, along with your pancreas, helps inject your bloodstream with a massive amount of glucose, which is basically what? Sugar, blood sugar, basically. So it gives you this little spike of energy. All right, what do we call that? Fight or flight. Good. Fight or flight or freeze. Okay, fight, flight, or freeze. This is our body's reaction to some sort of a stressor. Usually it's a high level of stress. This could be performing in front of a large audience, giving a speech to a class. It could be going someplace you don't really want to go, but knowing that you have to go. It could be getting into a fight or a verbal confrontation with a bully. Okay, it could be a car accident. It could be a wild animal chasing after you. How many of you have ever been startled or spooked by a wild animal? Or maybe a domesticated animal? Dogs, cats, whatever. Okay, our body has this natural fight or flight system in it. All right, and it helps us prepare for potential danger, and it helps us protect against potential danger. Those of you that almost were in a car accident, one more time, or maybe you were in a car accident. Do you remember the exact spot that happened? Do you remember it when you drive by or go through that place? That is also part of that fight or flight response. Your brain, have you guys heard have you ever learned about memory and how memory works? At least what we think. Short term, long term, anybody heard that? Okay. So when we have these fight or flight responses, guess what happens? Your brain bypasses your short term memory and goes right into your long term memory. So that car accident that again you was almost in is permanently saved. So every time you drive by it, you remember it, you link back to it. It's your body's way of saying, hey, something almost bad happened or something did happen here that almost caused us harm or did cause us harm. It makes us be more alert. Questions? Okay. So the subdivisions of the autonomic nervous system are these. Parasympathetic. Whoops. There we go. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get to that in just a minute. How about that? Autonomic nervous system, again, it controls all of our automatic things that we don't have to worry about. Breathing, our heartbeat. We might think about our heartbeat when we walk up these stairs, like I've seen some of you do, and you're like, okay, you feel that heartbeat, you feel those lungs burning a little bit, all right? And you know who I'm talking about, all right? The somatic nervous system, on the other hand, this is the part of our body that actually carries our weight up one step at a time. Okay, it's moving our body to make sure we do that. Sometimes it malfunctions a little bit and we trip, or maybe we're not paying attention and we hit something or run into somebody. It's more voluntary than it is automatic. Okay, questions? This is basically the same thing we just talked about. So if you didn't copy it down, make sure you copy it down. I'll give everybody a few seconds with that screen. Are we missing anybody other than Isla? I think we have everybody else. Okay, anybody more time on this? Okie dokie. All right, like I said, the next two, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now, when we think of sympathy, we think of feeling sadness for somebody or someone else or whatever. In this case, our sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response. Fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Thanks, Abby. Fight or flight or freeze. Yes. No. Well, let me explain both. They work in tandem. They work together. One does one thing, the other does the opposite. This gears us up to either run like HE double hockey sticks or to fight, or for in some cases it causes us to freeze, where we kind of like if you've ever watched Jurassic Park, you know, when the T-Rex is around, you just don't move. All right. The parasympathetic, on the other hand, calms us back down after our fight or flight is engaged. So they work in tandem. First, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, pumps us full of adrenaline, does a bunch of other things. Can you put that phone away, please? Away. Okay, parasympathetic brings us back down. How many of you have ever heard of, or maybe you yourself have had this happen once or twice? If you get really super scared, especially little children, what do they have a tendency to do? They wet themselves sometimes. Yeah, they wet themselves sometimes. Okay, that is part of the sympathetic nervous system being engaged. What are some other things that happen? We talked about adrenaline. All right, Tegan said adrenaline gets pumped into your bloodstream, which it does. It's a hormone that causes everything to speed up. Also, epinephrine and norepinephrine. What are some other things that happen? What do you think happens to your eyeballs? Our pupils dilate, meaning they open up so they can do what? They can see more. It pulls in more light and it allows us to see more. All right, see more dangerous things coming at us possibly. So when our pupils open up, it actually expands our vision slightly more to the sides. Okay? Let's take a look at some of those responses. Okay, it's close to Halloween. I always like to show this slide. So again, we've already talked about these. This is just kind of a recap of sympathetic versus parasympathetic. Sympathetic gears us up. Parasympathetic calms us down. All right, we're going to look at some of those bodily functions. So, whoops. The sympathetic nervous system. Let's start at the top and go down. All right, the brain is in command of everything here. It's dilating your pupils. It's increasing your heartbeat. That's due to the adrenaline being released in your bloodstream, along with the norepinephrine and epinephrine. Any digestion that you have going on in your stomach is temporarily suspended. It doesn't mean that it shuts off. It just stops. It pauses until the fight or flight is done. Your pancreas also works to inhibit digestion, and it also works to stimulate the liver to release adrenaline directly into your bloodstream, which gives you that, it speeds everything up. All right, how many of you have heard of an EpiPen? Maybe some of you carry an EpiPen. If you carry an EpiPen or you have an EpiPen, what are you carrying that for, Gio? Allergies. Good. Usually very severe allergies, not like, you know, bad sinuses or something, but like something that could cause you to die, like peanuts, whatever. There's all sorts of things people can be allergic to. An EpiPen stands for what? Epinephrine. Epinephrine is another name for what we call commonly adrenaline. So when you inject somebody with an EpiPen, it shoots epinephrine directly into the bloodstream. That epinephrine causes the body to be able to deal with that allergic reaction faster, and it buys them time to get a stronger antihistamine in them, like a Benadryl or something like that. or maybe an even stronger antihistamine. Okay, the adrenal gland, again, you've got adrenaline or epinephrine and norepinephrine being released, causing us to fight or flight. If you'll notice, the adrenal gland is tucked behind the kidneys. How many kidneys do we have? 2 kidneys, one on either side, unless, of course, there was a birth defect or there was a removal of one, which it does happen. The adrenal gland is also, because being on the back side of the kidneys, it also makes it very close to what important neural pathway? Somebody said it. What was it? It's very, very close to your spinal cord. Okay? That's important because your spine helps with that reaction, and it helps channel the amount of neural impulse to the brain. If you had your adrenal gland in your big toe, would it be faster or slower than being up against your spine? It's going to be a little slower. Again, your bladder relaxes. Okay, energy that is holding or constricting the bladder, holding all of the urine in, it is rerouted to other parts of the body. And then obviously we have our sexual organs, both in male and female. All right, we'll talk more about them later. All right, next thing, write this down, reflex arc. Reflex arc. So not only is your brain basically a supercomputer, Sophia. Okay, not only is it a supercomputer, but it has a built-in shortcut for safety. If I was to throw this as hard as I could at somebody, and I used to be able to throw pretty hard, all right, what would be your bodily response, Autumn? Yeah, you would flinch. Your muscles would tense real quick. Maybe put your hands up. Usually we turn our head away. What do we do with our eyes? Close them. All right, that's a reflex. It's the body's way of reacting. Now, have you heard of this term, knee-jerk response? Okay, do you know why they call it a knee-jerk response? I'm gonna set it right there. Put it away then. Tuck it away somewhere where you won't be distracted from all this lovely knowledge. Okay, so what happens is this. If I was to throw this right now at Gio, because he's about ready to fall asleep, all right, as hard as I could, you'd catch it? I'm not going to do it. But the point is this. If I was to throw this as hard as I could, what's going to happen is Gio will see my body's movement and will notice like my arm speeding up. The brain will sense potential danger, as will Roxy and Rachel and probably Peyton and anybody in the back there, Max. Hopefully Jamie's paying attention, because if you duck out of the way, Jamie's going to have to catch it, all right? What happens is this. Remember how we talked about the peripheral nervous system carries a sensory message from the outside world to our body, like into the brain? What happens is this. When it hits our spine, the spine has the ability to say, hey, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. And what it can do, instead of sending the message and waiting for the brain to respond, it can send a motor response right back. How many of you ever burnt your hand? Okay, hot stove. You got a problem. So what's the natural reaction when you maybe you step on something, or you touch something really hot? Yeah, how many of you have stubbed your toe in the middle of the night going to the bathroom or whatever? First thing that you do usually is pull it up, right? Pull it up towards you or pull it away. Start swearing. Mop up the blood. Okay. Oh, I've done a whole lot of horrible things to my feet. I put a You know what pole spike is? It's a nail. It's about that long. It's serrated. I grew up on a farm, so I mean we had barns and all that. So I was walking through this area that was just kind of old and run down, and I ran a pole spike right through my foot. It came out the top. That was fun. It would squirt. Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to bleed to death. It can happen. All right. So what happens is this. That sensory impulse goes right to our spine. Our spine recognizes damage or potential damage, and it sends an immediate motor response to try to buy us more time to get away from whatever's causing us damage, whether it's a hot stove, a rock, whatever. Put the phones away. God, your hair's fine. Put it away. All right. Any questions on a reflex arc? This is what it looks like right here. So you put your finger on a hot surface. It sends a sensory impulse to the spine. Once it gets here to the spine is going to recognize that danger to the body. It's going to send a message to the brain, but it's not going to wait on the brain to respond. It's going to send an immediate motor response. And the motor response is movement to pull away from that hot object. Yes. I'm sorry, you got a water burn? Oh, a burn. Got it. Anyway, continue, please. Yeah. Well, your body was tensing in response to the pain, the initial pain, and the problem was that you were holding it. So as your body tried to go through the fight or flight, it actually caused your body more damage. And you probably had some sort of mental control over that, like you didn't want to drop it. Most of the time, you want to drop it. I had a similar response. I actually, when I was about your age, I used to come home from school and I would make chicken noodle soup. I'd throw a couple packets of dried noodle soup in the microwave. I'd hit 2 minutes, and then I'd go watch cartoons for like 30 minutes or whatever. And then I'd come back and it'd be nice and kind of cool, and I guess I could dig into it. Well, one day I wasn't really paying attention. I think I hit an extra zero. So instead of 200, I hit 2000. And I wasn't really paying attention. When I went and got it, 20 minutes later, like right when it had gone off, and I had this big, heavy crock that I would carry it in. And this was big. This is back when, it was way before your time, but like pegging your jeans. You guys ever heard of that? Like where you wrap them and like roll them up. It was really whatever. It was a thing. I'm sorry, what? I'll tell you later. So what happened was this. I sit down on my favorite Lazy Boy to watch cartoons, and that soup, when I sit down, the Lazy Boy kicked out a little too hard, and it rolled back and kind of like burnt my belly. So I threw it, right, to get it off of me. That whole bowl landed right on my right foot. And I had, this was back when like soccer shoes were kind of cool. Like you would wear soccer shoes and you would wrap the laces around your ankle underneath the peg jean, which was, don't ask me why, it just was the thing we did. And the problem was I couldn't get my shoe off. It was like double knotted. So it just sat there and cooked. And finally, when I got it off, no. I finally got my shoe off. It actually burned my fingers getting the shoe off. Like I couldn't get it off, like working the knot. It would actually burn my fingers. And then when I peeled my sock off, the whole top layer of skin came off. It was bad. It was a very, very bad burn. You got to remember, I have a couple years on you there, Kenneth. This was a up north thing, and I mean, I don't know if it was a country. It was not a country thing. It was just, I don't know. There's certain things that are in style, and when yes, Max. Hey, stop. Go. No, not right now. Let me go, and then maybe end of class. All right. All right, moving on. What, burn stories? All right, last thing we're going to cover today is the endocrine system. Psst, hey, Abigail. All right. So the endocrine system, don't call it the endocrine system. A lot of people want to call it the endocrine system. It's not the endocrine system. It is the endocrine system. All right. So we just got done talking about the nervous system. The nervous system is comprised of neurons and nerves. All right. It is our very fast communication system. This is our slow communication system. Now, here's a confusing thing y'all might want to make a note of. You might want to make a note of this. There are some neurotransmitters that double as hormones. For example, norepinephrine would be a hormone that also is a neurotransmitter. It's the same chemical molecule, but you just find it in a different place. Make sure you make a note that hormones are released directly into the bloodstream. Sure. So neurotransmission is super fast. All right, it's like a text message. The endocrine system is slow. It's like putting a letter in the mail. And that's even if it ever gets to where it's supposed to go. There are a couple hormones that are also neurotransmitters. So don't be surprised by that, is what I'm getting at. Norepinephrine is used in neurotransmission. It is also used as a hormone in your chemical communication in the bloodstream. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. All right, let's take a look at a couple of the glands. That's okay. Have any of you ever studied the endocrine system? Science class or chemistry maybe? Good. Okay. The adrenal glands. We've already talked about the adrenal glands. What you need to know from this whole slide is that they're located on the kidneys and they help fire the fight or flight response. That's what you need to know from this whole slide. Okay? They're located above the kidneys, kind of like on top in the back side of the kidneys, and they are essential for our fight or flight response. So when you get that adrenaline burst, when somebody gets up in your face, or you feel the car spinning out of control, or somebody cuts in front of you with not enough space, your adrenal glands are going to pump norepinephrine and epinephrine into your bloodstream, causing you to, it feels like time slows down a little bit, but in reality, your body just speeds up its function. Some of us respond to this fight or flight differently. Some of us do freeze. Like, all right, somebody gets up in our face, sometimes we don't know how to handle it properly. We kind of just freeze. All right? And for some of us, that's basically where our body is saying, we don't really know how to respond, so we're just going to give it some time. Some of us are runners. All right? You have some sort of a threat, turn and run. Some of us are fighters. We turn and we face and we fight. Okay? I'm sorry? Is that how that, you're going to give him a wicked backhand? All right. I can't see you being a big, like, throwdown, Roxy. You seem like too nice of a person. All right. Does anybody need me to repeat? You don't have to have all of this. Above the kidneys. Helps us with fight or flight. Good. Yeah. Well, the kidney, the adrenal gland is not technically a part of the kidney. There may be some connective tissue that holds it in place, but it's not directly connected to the kidney, as far as I know. Hey, so in a case of a kidney transplant, every effort would be made to preserve the adrenal glands in place. Good. Okay, pituitary is what you need to know. The pituitary controls all other glands. The pituitary controls all other glands. It's also called the master gland. The pituitary controls all other glands with the exception of one gland. We'll talk about that gland in just a minute. The pituitary is the master gland. It controls all other glands with the exception of one. That other gland, the only gland that the pituitary does not control is the hypothalamus. This gland right here. I'm sorry? I'll talk about it in just a second. All right, any questions on pituitary? Master gland controls all glands in the endocrine system, with the exception of the hypothalamus. Does anybody know what the word hypo means, or the prefix hypo? Good, under or below. Hyper means over, like hyperactive means overactive. Hypoactive means below normal. Hypothalamus means what? Below the thalamus. So the hypothalamus is kind of a cool thing. It's very small. It's the gateway between the brain or the central nervous system and the endocrine system. So the hypothalamus receives its orders from the brain. The brain then tells the hypothalamus what to tell the pituitary gland. The pituitary then controls all others. Think of this as like, think of the CNS as like the president of the United States, and the hypothalamus is a general, and the pituitary would be like a sergeant. Okay, orders go down the chain. Any questions on that? Gio, did that answer your question? Did you get all of it? Hope so. All right, any other questions on this? Good. Are we good? All right, folks, you don't need to write all this down. All right, I just want to show you where they're at. So your hypothalamus, if you'll notice, the thalamus itself is the ice cream scoop on top of that ice cream cone. We talked about the brainstem. The hypothalamus is just beneath that, and then the pituitary is just beneath the hypothalamus. So they're actually, it's almost like a sandwich. Thalamus, hypothalamus, and then the pituitary. These are your parathyroids and your thyroids. Have you guys ever heard of thyroidism, hyper or hypothyroidism? Does anybody know that they have a parent that might take thyroid medication, or maybe you guys take thyroid medication? My dad takes thyroid medication to regulate his thyroid. Your thyroid helps with your metabolism, how you burn blood sugar. Okay, your parathyroids actually help regulate calcium in your bloodstream. Have you guys ever seen hard water? You guys know what I mean by hard water? Not ice, but that technically is hard water. Hard water, like hard water deposits, lots of minerals. If you've ever seen a sink or a shower that has like a white flaky stuff on it, all right? If you have, it's not very common in the South, but if you've ever been somewhere out of the South, up north, it's bad because we have a lot of calcium in the water. So what happens is it creates like a scaling, like almost like a crust that forms on the inside of the pipes. Same thing happens to our blood if we have too much calcium. We get what's called calcified blood vessels, and I've actually had one. It's really gross. Yeah. Again, adrenal glands we've already talked about. Fight or flight. The pancreas helps regulate our insulin. Okay, so when fight or flight occurs, it's going to try to pull back some of that insulin so we can experience the full effect of glucose. After the fight or flight, it's going to increase insulin to help us deal with that blood sugar blast. And then we have our sexual reproductive organs, our glands, which again, we will talk about later. That's that. Hey, rude. Does anybody have any questions for me? Test tomorrow, right? Folks, next class on Wednesday, we will start part B. All right, part B is all about the human brain. We look specifically at the human brain, the lobes, the functions, how we divide it. All right, also, hey, not done yet. Listen. Hello. We're about 2 seconds from having brand new seats for the rest of the year. Okay. So don't forget, next week, Tuesday is voting day. We will not have school next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. 1 week from tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but 1 week from tomorrow, November the 2nd, I think. Okay? Just as an FYI. All right, folks at home, that's all we got for today. I will see you all